Well, welcome everybody, and thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us for our live event. My name is Mark Hudson, CEO of Squirrel 365, and today I'm joined by my colleague Donald McCormick, our Chief Strategy Officer. We're recording this live event, and this will be available to you all later today. Now, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, and I also encourage you to use the Q&A and chat panels during the session. Say hello on the chat panels, ask questions on the Q&A panel that Donald can answer towards the end of the event. Okay, so let's get started. Today we're going to be showing you how Squirrel 365 can enable you to build dashboards in hours and days rather than weeks and months. Today you're going to see how Squirrel can help you dramatically reduce your dashboard development time and total cost of ownership, accelerate adoption and deployment of real actionable dashboards, promote effective decision making through increased interactivity and greater accessibility, and finally produce more dashboards more quickly, with more interactively, and for less cost. And if you're an SAP Business Objects platform user, you'll see how you can leverage your existing universes, Web Intelligence and Crystal Report content, and how Squirrel fills the gap for dashboard development left by Design Studio and SAP Dashboards. So let's see how we do it. Donald, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome everyone to today's webinar, wherever you are in the world and whatever time it is for you. As Mark said, we're going to look at building dashboards in Squirrel and how that can be a much quicker, much lower cost activity than you would traditionally expect. And just to reiterate some of the things that Mark said, what we're going to do today is to help you understand how you can deliver on your business objects data, or indeed on pretty much any other data. So if you're not a business objects user, there's still lots here for you to take away, and how you can deliver that data to more people more easily, faster, and at lower cost, and get greater end user adoption, and take your first step from dashboards to apps. And those two are connected at the end. The end user adoption and the first step from dashboard to apps is they're tied together because one helps the other. And we'll see what we mean by that when we come to the demos and the sort of thing that we see dashboards growing into. In fact, we see most of our customers deploying with Squirrel are a new breed of dashboard that aren't just hang on the wall, point it when it goes red, but actually allow users to interact and see different things and respond to what they're doing to make it really easy to use, which is why we talk about dashboards which require no end user training, no training required for people to use it. And it's a fantastic example of that from our customer, one of our customers, coming up in just a minute. And so the value proposition of Squirrel with its partner product InfoBurst is that you can create stunning, really stunning web-based dashboards and apps, and from existing data, whether that be in SAP Business Objects or in your data warehouse or on an online spreadsheet or on Smartsheet, or even just in an Excel or Google Sheets document, in days or weeks, not months or years. Everything you see today, I'll show you a number of completed dashboards. They all took way less than a day to create. There's nothing complicated in doing this process, in making these. You can create them incredibly quickly and incredibly easily. And the reason for that is we leverage spreadsheet knowledge to do this. We use a spreadsheet in an innovative way that allows you to do things much more quickly with existing skills. Almost everybody knows how to use the basics of a spreadsheet. So we use that knowledge to allow you to map your data from your data sources into the visual components in the dashboard and control how the end user interaction goes. So with skills you already have, and definitely with clicks and no code, you can do what we're going to see today quickly and easily. And all of that pulls into an amazingly low total cost of ownership for both development and deployment of these dashboards, both now and ongoing maintenance into the future. And interestingly, we had a discussion recently, Mark and I had a discussion recently with a head of BI for a large corporate. And what they said really struck me. They said, I have a straightforward business requirement. In fact, they said they had a number of straightforward business requirements to take existing data, and they knew the sort of dashboard, sort of front end they wanted, to a large group of users. But when I assessed the cost of running up, I won't mention the tool that they were using, one of the BI tools, then a server to manage that, it's suddenly over $100,000 before I start. And one of the great things about the way that Squirrel is licensed is that won't be the starting cost if you use Squirrel to do a similar project. And so we can really cut the investment you need up front, deliver value, and then grow with you as you need to deliver more applications around your business. And one of the key phrases in here again is to a large group of users. If you are delivering to a large group of users, you have to do something slightly different. I've long said that if you've got a dashboard deployment project to a number of users and you have end user training in your rollout plan, you've done something wrong. These things should be usable out of the box. And I always come back to this, and if any of you been in any of our webinars, you've heard this before, I come back to the idea that business dashboards like this should be like the BBC weather website or any weather website. Huge amounts of data, put it in it's about a nice to use interface, and with a few clicks I can get to anything that I want. I was never trained on it. There's no documentation. It just works, and it's the amount of data behind a weather forecast is huge. And then you've got all the predictive algorithms that go with that, but it's distilled down in an interface which anybody can use without training, without documentation. And that's what we should be aiming at. And that's the transition from dashboard to app that we'll see as we go on through this. So I said we're going to have a great example of a dashboard that sort of starts to lead us in this direction. And it's USPI. USPI are a multi-center healthcare provider in the US, and at the beginning of the outbreak of COVID, they needed something to manage their PPE, their personal protective equipment, and their supplies to do with COVID, and they had to do it really quickly because obviously it was an emergency. They had to get on top of this quickly and easily. What they produced and how they produced it, and the time frames in which they produced it are nothing short of remarkable. So if we look here, this is the dashboard. So this was an excerpt from a webinar. This is David Baer at USPI who kindly did this webinar with me. And you can see the full webinar on our website recorded if you want to go into more details. And this is their COVID-19 dashboard. And I've just taken some snippets from the 30-minute webinar to give you a feel for what's going on here. So it comes in, it's laid out, it looks fantastic, which is really important for getting people to come in and use it. But then it also has key features that make it easy to use. So obviously, as many dashboards do, it's got a filter, so I can quickly and easily filter down to the data that I'm looking for. But also it allows to drill through, but in a particular way. So here, I'm going to click on David here when he's demoing is clicking on surgical gowns. Now, what we see when we move the video on is we get a pop-up that shows us where those 72, so if you add all of these up, they get to 70. Where is the 72? Where are they available? And that was allowing people in the facilities to get hold of this information to understand where they could get supplies from, because they had to share it around their different locations. Again, it's really easy. You click on it, you see the details you need. There's nothing to think about. There's also the ability to change views. So up here, we've got this capability to view hospital-specific metrics. And it does what it says, really. Just click it, I get hospital-specific metrics. So I click on that, I see a different view. I don't have to cram it all into one view. There's the idea that somehow these should be on one screen and never change. That's really old-fashioned sort of dashboard methodology. These are apps which allow you to navigate the data. Think again about a weather website. I want to see the forecast today or tomorrow or hourly or at the weekend. All these views, you couldn't cram it all into one view. You have to be able to navigate it. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing here. And so this, the remarkable thing about this dashboard was not only was it built in 3 weeks, but that included all the time to get the data collection put in place because they didn't have this data captured. So they set up a system across their network to capture that data, then put it into their data warehouse. They in fact do use business objects on top of it. They wrote business objects, universes and Webby reports to control that data or manage that data. And then right at the end, they put that Squirrel dashboard on top of it to deliver it out to the end users. And then they had hundreds of end users, so clinicians, nurses, sort of staff at the hospitals using this. Imagine you had to train them all, sit them down for half a day and say, this is how you use it. It would have gone nowhere. It's the immediacy of being able to see it, know what you want. Oh yes, I just click on that and get the things that I need. That's an absolutely critical part of delivering these things, particularly when you're going to a wider audience. It's the value, however big your audience, but the bigger the audience, the more important that becomes. So that's, if you like, the end of the PowerPoint slides to set up. The rest of this is going to be in the product, showing you, first of all, what this looks like at the end result. So I've got 3 examples here on different data sources, doing different sorts of things that take us from almost like a traditional dashboard, although it's not quite, none of these are traditional dashboards, through to a more app-like capability. And then after that, we're going to go and build one of these to explain to you the unique value, the unique proposition that is Squirrel, and why it is so much faster and easier than anything else you've ever come across to build these sort of dashboards and applications. So if I come in and bring my browser in, so what I'm going to do is, I've got these 3, the 3 you just saw on the slide, 3 different dashboards or different dashboard applications, that just to show you some of the capabilities that you can do. And I said all of these work on different data sources. I'll explain as I go through, and none of them took more than a few hours to put together. Even this one is actually sitting on top of a Snowflake cloud data warehouse. It's on their sample data. It's got 62 million rows underneath it. And it's an interactive, going backwards and forwards to the database, querying as it goes. So it's their sample data is about the city bikes in New York, data from the New York City bike scheme. I've added some strange region and town names just so I had a hierarchy to drill down. But what I can do here, so I'm on 2016 data. I click on 2017 and there it's updated. Click on 2018, that's updated there. Now they're running interactive queries against that 62 million data set, heavy lifting being done by the Snowflake database. I can also go to look at subscribers only or customers, which is how they segment their customers, or go back to all. Again, great sub-second response. Snowflake is a fantastic product. It really is a great sort of cloud-based data warehouse. But also what we can do here is drill down. So I can take one of these. So like I'll take the Clysist fields, if that's how you pronounce it, and drill down. So that's gone away. That's drilled into the underlying data, into the towns in that region. Now, something interesting happens now when I go into, let's say I'll go into Al Ryan. I drill down there. What you see is I'm getting the stations inside there, but the icon has changed. You notice that, and that's the ability to change things to prompt the user. So now what I could do is I can select this, click on this, and this is going to show me those journeys, the top 30 rides by duration for that particular station. And so I keep coming back to, rather like a weather website, I've gone from the high level. I can sort of look at my whole and drill right down into underlying data. With 2 or 3 clicks, I can get the data that I want in 2 or 3 clicks, all from an interface which is almost impossible not to be able to use. So it's something that people can use just by picking up, going to their portal, their website, send them a link or whatever it is, and it's all just excuse me, easy to use, get the information that you need. And as I say, all of this is running dynamically on a 62 million row data set. So even this, it looks like a traditional dashboard, but it's much more than that. Remember the bike icon that appears, the change of view when I come down in to see the bikes, the bike journeys. So it's even here, it's presenting different information for different things. You don't notice it, and neither you should, because it's about just being in the flow, and you shouldn't notice the tool. It should just work with you. So the second one is, if you like, a more traditional sort of dashboard with KPIs at the top. But other things that I can do here that are interesting. Obviously, I can do the normal sort of drilling across on quarter, filtering on quarters. But also I've got this this monthly view. I can click on this and go to a quarterly view, so I don't have to have those crammed on at the same time. If I've got different views that I need, I can switch them on and off with UI on the dashboard. And also here, one of the interesting things about Squirrel is, because I say it's based on a spreadsheet, we can do calculations on top of the data that we retrieve from the database. And so if I want to sort of say, well, what's my predicted values based on increased sales, I can change my percentage sales increase and see how that affects the numbers. But when this goes one step further, and interestingly, David Baer, who is the chap you saw presenting the USPI dashboard in the top corner of my screen there, he differentiates a dashboard from an application by writing back. And this, in fact, does write back, this one here. And sort of what I can do is I can, oh, apologies, let me just, that shouldn't happen. There we go. So what I've got here is a little comments box. And so not only do I get comments, but when I click on them, I can see what the longer comments are as I select them. So I've got that capability there, but also I can add a new comment. So I've added a new comment, it goes away, it writes it, and that's written it into an underlying database. And that database can be, as I say, something like an online smart sheet or back to a relational database like so Oracle or SQL Server or MySQL or something like that, depending on what you want to do. So you can really start to capture information from these dashboards as well, which is a big step forward. And then the final one we'll look at is much simpler, but actually I like this because it's a different type of write back. So here I can go and look at different suppliers of my products and how they're selling here, but I can click on any one of them. Let's say I go back to CNA, click on Hot Wheels, and then I can click on that and see the invoices. Again, here I'm changing the interface so that people can get what they need, and it's obvious. I click on something, it says invoices, and what you'll notice here is that sort of if I click on here and then sort of I click on there, then I can start to update these. So I would say, well, actually, that invoice was not for 4, it should have been for I don't know, so say 10. So you notice it's 7:15 there, but if I update this, that's writing it back, refreshing the whole thing, so it's now 9:10 because it's 10 in there, and that's updated. That's actually written it back to the underlying transaction in that database, so that we can update. Now, maybe you don't want to be updating invoices like that, but you can imagine other things that you're doing there. But in the flow of your dashboard, so I come in here, I can correct some information, maybe not even correct it, maybe just flag it with a comment that says this should be flagged as wrong. We need to investigate this, and that can spark something at the back end, which allows people to then go and investigate that. So that we start to see these applications are twofold. One is this way of creating an interface which just people can just use because we build it to speak their language. So if you understand the process, then you get what you if you understand the process, then you get an interface which really fits with that, so you don't have to be trained on it. But also this ability not just to consume data, but to be able to write back data into the underlying systems, so that you can start to take action from these dashboards and these applications, not just review data, and when it goes red you can ring someone to say, hold us out, what's going on. So you get to the detail, you understand what's going on, and then you can take action all from one interface. So that's the sort of thing that you can do with Squirrel on top of data. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build one from scratch, and this is where we're going to build it from. The business object. So business object's Webby document. And so if I come back to my browser here, I come into Launchpad. I've got this. Where is it? Product sales by vendor. So this is. If I log on, then I've got a very simple Webby report. This works with any Webby report. We're going to publish it, or I have already published it as a web service, so that we can get hold of it. And it's just I've got order year, product group, vendor name, and revenue, and sort of actually you can only publish this as a web service from the rich client. So I've got it up here in the rich client. And what I've done is what you have to do is take your Webby report, click on it, and then publish it as a web service. And when you get these web services here, and we're going to use these two web services. The first one I'm going to use is this product sales by vendor, and I'm going to need to take that URL to be able to get it into Squirrel. So then what I do is I come into Squirrel, and what I've got here is I've got a sheet, and the only thing that's in this sheet is this. I've got in these cells I've got an invisible username and password. So I'm not sort of broadcasting that out on the webinar. So I'll bind to these cells in here for my password when the time comes. So what I can do is add a connection, and I'm going to say I want an SAP BI Web Service connection. And then what I do is I paste in that URL and it goes away and says, right, what do you want? And you saw those are the three. If we come back to the Webby, you see those are the three: product sales, and vendors there that I've got. And so I'm going to take the product sales, and then required inputs. I'm going to take the login and the password, and I'm also going to take the vendor name. And for the vendor name, for the time being, I'm going to limit it to Digitron. We'll see. I will come back to that a bit later. And then for my login, I'm going to bind that into the spreadsheet. So I'm going to bind it to that user there, and the password I'm going to bind to this one here. And so I'm now all set up. The last thing I need to do is to say, well, where do I want this data to go? And I want this data to come in here. So having just done that, I can come into debug, and what we'll get is, I've obviously misspelled. Apologies for that. Come in there. There we go. That's much better. So we've got the data for Digitron there. So we can take this as the basis now for starting our dashboard. So I've already got my sort of the data that I want to work on. Maybe make this a little more readable here. I'll format that as a number and reduce the decimal point. So I've got my data in. So I want to start to use it. Now it's really easy to get the data in. So now I've got it, and now I've got it in this environment, this spreadsheet environment that is very natural and very easy to plug and play the numbers into what I want. So the first thing I want to do is to have a chart, and what I want is a chart that is this is the product group, and this is the year, and I want to show product groups by year. But typically, this is a bad format for to have it in like that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it, but I'm going to use the spreadsheet to change it, because we've got that there, and then I need to take the headings here. So I can just, because I've got spreadsheet capabilities here, if I just get these, so I've got those there. I want to transform this. Now, if I wanted to transform this into this, essentially pivoting it, and I'd have to have a new query. I have to go back to the business objects, maybe, or if I was again a database, I have to write a new query, which may not be something I can do. I can't publish it to the server. I want to do it all from this data that already exists. And simply in the spreadsheet world, what I can do here is I can just say, well, 2007 internals, well, that's just that one there. And 2007 network is just that one there, and 2007 peripherals is that one there, and 2007 video is that one there. So I could just I could just continue down, just putting in those. Oh, I don't want to do that. Let's get rid of those. I could just keep doing equals and pulling it out, but there's a quicker way of doing that, because we're in a spreadsheet, and if you know the tricks of the trade, so if I 2, 3, 4, copy that down 4 times, and then cut it back up there, it'll give me what I want. I mean, as I say, you don't have to do this. You could just put the formulas in manually just for you guys, because it's a demo. We don't want to take too long. So there we go there. So I've got those. So that's all of these, and you can see that if I say, so I'm again just using spreadsheet. It's brilliant, just having these spreadsheet capabilities. So there, if I take that and make it a number, and so I've got that. If I take the sum of all of these, it should be the same. See my life in my hands here. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration perhaps, and sort of there. And again, we'll make that a format that so I can see it. So there we go. They're the same numbers. So I've just redistributed those numbers across there. But having done that, and said I didn't need to go to another query. I didn't need to ask my administrators for some other view. I can just say right now I want a column chart, and I'm going to take that data and I'm going to bind it into my column chart. And hey presto, I have the view that I wanted in there. I can start doing things like, okay, on here I want to change this. So yearly revenue. I don't want a subtitle, and so there I have I have the chart that I wanted. So now what I want to do is I often want to put a table next to it. So I'm going to have a table, but this time the table is not going to be all years. It's going to focus on 1 year, and so I'm going to focus on 2007. And what I want is I want just the total for 2007 for each product line. Apologies. Someone is not at the door, driving the dog mad. So I've got 2007 product line, and I've got revenue I want there. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to take this data from from here. So what I can do is I'm going to say, depending on 2007, so I want this to change depending on the year. So I can say this is equal to, if that is equal to 2007, then I'm going to take that. Otherwise, if that is equal to 2008, I'm going to take that. And similarly, and so I'll just go on and sort of, I just have to do the 5 different ones. It's 2009 internals, and if it's 2010, then it's going to be that one. And if it equals to 2011, and it's going to be that one. And if I could spell if, like that, and so that you'll see if I formatted that as a number, that's just pulling out this one here. Now, if I go and do the same, this is a spreadsheet trick. So I want this when I copy this down, I just want it to stay as 10 here, so it's referring the same cell. So I go to 10, I go to 10. So make these absolute references. Again, it's just standard Excel spreadsheet style stuff like that. And there we go with those there. Now, if I change this to 2008, you see all of those. Oh, apologies, I got my formula slightly wrong. Oh. Right, I know why. It's I can't use the wrong. There we go, that's better. So these will change to there like that. Now what I want to do is I want a table of those. I'll take the table up here, and then I'm going to just bind that data into the table. So those there. So I get my table of values. But this revenue column, I want to format slightly differently. So I'm going to make it as a number. I'm going to put in a decimal place there. I'm going to put it at the end. So there I have the table that I want. But now what I've got is something that is updatable depending on what's in the spreadsheet. So I can have UI. So I'm going to add a drop down here, and that drop down is going to take its values from just these here. Is going to write when the user selects on this, it's going to take the label and insert it into this cell here. And I'm going to say I want to start it with what's in there, so the 2008 one. So now you'll see what happens when I run this. If I change this, then the numbers change in there because it's changing based on the formulas. And again, I haven't had to have a new query that's parameterized, or I can do this all in the spreadsheet. And this is why it's so quick and easy to do this sort of thing. So I've now got that there that I can do, and I can add titles, and I can create KPIs and use text where to do all this thing based on sort of logic in the spreadsheet. And then the final thing that I can do here is I'm going to as I said, if you see this connection here is just for Digitron. And what we want to do is is parameterize the whole thing. So I'm going back and pulling a new set of data from the BI web service based on what I choose. And I have another, as you saw earlier, I have another BI web service that I can add in here, and that BI web service gives me a list of vendors. Again, this is the vendor list coming from the underlying business object system. And again, I just wire this into my username and password. So I go there and I say I'm going to put this. I'll put this into these values here in sheet 2. So now if I run this, what we see there are the values that have come out of the database or out of the business object system for, again, yeah, those ones there have come out of the business object system. So I can so what I can now do is I can say I'm going to add a second drop down, and then I'm going to drive that from this dynamic list. So maybe make it longer in case there are more that come out there, and then I'm going to say I'm going to take that label and I'm going to insert it into this cell here when it's chosen. Sorry, again, I'm going to give it a default value, which is probably just going to be Acme Corporation. And now what I can do is this yellow cell here, which has got that value in it, I'm going to say to the first query, I'm going to say, rather than Digitron, I'm going to map it into this cell here. And also I want to update this every time that cell changes. And with all of that, now what I have is, if I come and debug this, I've got my data comes in, but that's the data for Acme. If I go to Digitron, it changes. So that's now, every time I click that, it's going to a different query. I was running a different filter on the query. When I run this, it's computing it in the spreadsheet, so it's doing it on the client side. So I've built this all in like 3 or 4 minutes, or 50 minutes or so in front of you. I take that. This is the view that the end user would see. I go and publish it out. I publish it out to a set of files on my disk here, and then if I come back to my by Launchpad, I publish that, take those files, put them onto my business object system, then I can have this embedded inside InfoView. So here you see exactly what I've done. Similar thing, I just published it earlier up to and so now I have a critical vendor dashboard. You see I added a title, I added this KPI style view. I can click on this, change. Every time I do that, that's going back to the business object system to get more data. Every time I do this, it's just recomputing the spreadsheet to give me a different set of data that comes into here. So I can hopefully that gives you a feel for just how quickly and easily you can do it. And it's all about that spreadsheet, using that knowledge to be able to pull data from the data source, manipulate it and put it the way you want. Most of the time on a dashboard saying, oh, the data isn't quite like that, I need a new query, I need to manage it a different way. All of that goes out the window. It really does make a huge difference to the productivity. And just so all of that you saw today was just Squirrel, but if you want to access Crystal Reports content or other SQL databases, you're going to need InfoBurst. So InfoBurst is a server piece that allows you to access those things. It also can cache data to take a load off your business objects system or your database servers. We haven't touched on it today. It's not really part of the Squirrel world, but also InfoBurst allows you to burst content to various users through email or many other ways from your BI platform. So hopefully that shows you how you can take your business objects and other data to more people more easily, faster, at lower cost, and get greater end user adoption because you're building these interfaces that are just trivial to use. And in doing that, you're taking the first step from dashboards to these new apps in a way which is natural and straightforward and built on skills that you already have. If any of this has piqued your interest, next steps, download a trial at squirrel365.io/get started, or contact us at info@squirrel365.io or visit our website where there are more details, including the webinar that you saw earlier that I referenced with David at USPI. So with that, I will stop and I will pass back to Mark, and we will take any questions that have come in.
Thank you, Donald. That was an excellent demonstration, and I did have a little giggle when Mojo was barking, thinking in 2 weeks' time when Alfie arrives, we may be competing against each other. So yes, we have got some great questions that have come in. Nikki has asked, can you embed the content in other portals? You showed us it inside BI Launchpad, but can it be embedded in any other portals?
Yes, essentially it's just web content, so you can embed it anywhere you like, in a SharePoint or in a website or wherever. Essentially, you can embed it. You can wherever you can embed a web page, you can embed a Squirrel project.
Fantastic. Richard has asked, what are the other data sources you support?
Oh, that's a long list. So the things you saw today were one going against a Snowflake database, one against a SQL Server database, one against a Smartsheet sheet, and as well as the business object stuff you saw at the end. But we support data from Google Sheets online, Excel online. You can actually deliver dashboards just based on a spreadsheet. If your data in a spreadsheet, we have a number of customers who just have a spreadsheet that they update once a month and have dashboards that way. And also through InfoBurst, we can get to sort of pretty much any SQL database that there is on the market. So yeah, a very wide range of data sources.
Fantastic. We've probably got time for one more question. We are running a little bit over time. Emma has asked, do you need to be an SAP Business Objects customer? I guess based on the fact we support other data sources, that's probably no.
No, you don't have to be. You absolutely don't have to be a business objects customer. I mean, we work really well with that, but you don't have to be that. And as I said, you don't really even have to have a database or any other server. If you have some data in a spreadsheet, you can get started with Squirrel and do these same amazing things, and then move on from there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Donald. Thank you all very much for attending our live event today. The recording will be sent out to you later this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're calling in from, along with an opportunity. Today, we've given you a high-level view of what Squirrel 365 can do for your business if you're a SAP Business Objects customer, if you've just got Excel data. If you want to take a deeper dive and explore how Squirrel 365 can really help drive actionable dashboards and interactive content around your organization, click on the deep dive button on the email, and that will allow you to schedule an hour with myself and Donald at your time. Bring your team along, and we can go into it further and answer any questions that you may have. So that leads me to say thank you to Donald. Thank you to all for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.